Little Johnny goes to confession. Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. I have been with a loose girl. The priest asks, Is that you, little Johnny Pagano? Yes, Father, it is. And who was the girl you were with? I can't tell you, Father. I don't want to ruin her reputation. Well, Johnny, I'm sure to find out her name sooner or later, so you may as well tell me now. Was it Tina Minetti? I cannot say. Was it Teresa Mazzarelli? I'll never tell. Was it Nina Capelli? I'm sorry, but I cannot name her. Was it Kathy Piriano? My lips are sealed. Was it Rosa D'Angelo, then? Please, Father, I cannot tell you. The priest sighs in frustration. You're very tight-lipped, and I admire that. But you've sinned and have to atone. You cannot be an altar boy now for 4 months. Now you go and behave yourself. Johnny walks back to his pew, and his friend Franco slides over and whispers, Well, what did you get? Johnny says, 4 months vacation and 5 good leads. 1. All three sit down at the bar. The bartender looks at the man and says, What'll you have? The man says, Give me a beer. The ostrich says, I'll have one too. The cat says, I want 2 beers, but I'm only gonna pay half price. The bartender serves up 4 beers and tells the man, That'll be 12.67. The man reaches in his pocket and without even looking, sets exact change down on the bar. After they finish their beers, the bartender asks, Anything else? The man says, Give me a shot of bourbon. The ostrich says, I'll have one too. The cat says, I want a double bourbon, but I'm only going to pay half price. The bartender serves them and says, That's $14.03. The man reaches into his pocket and without even looking again, sets exact change on the bar. After that round, the bartender says, What else will you have? The man says, I need a Jack and Coke. The ostrich says, Me too. The cat says, I want 2 Jack and Cokes, and I'm only paying. Half price, I know, says the bartender. He sets them up and says, $16.38, please. The man reaches in his pocket a 3rd time and again sets exact change on the bar without counting it out. The bartender asks the man, How is it that every time you pay for your drink order, you can set exact change on the bar without looking? The man says, Well, some years ago, I was walking on the beach in Egypt, and I found a magic lamp in the sand. I rubbed it, and a genie appeared and granted me 3 wishes for setting him free. So, with the first wish, I wished that no matter what I ever wanted to buy, I would always have exact change for it in my pocket. The bartender says, That's brilliant. Most people would wish for 1 million or 5 million or whatever. This way, you'll never run out of money. You don't have to worry about carrying it, and you'll never be robbed. Absolutely brilliant. The man says, I know, and thank you. The bartender says, So, what did you ask for with your other 2 wishes? The man said, A chick with long legs and a tight pee, too. In a small Italian town, hundreds of years ago, a small business owner owed a large sum of money to a loan shark. The loan shark was a very old, unattractive-looking guy that just so happened to fancy the business owner's daughter. He decided to offer the businessman a deal that would completely wipe out the debt he owed him. However, the catch was that we would only wipe out the debt if he could marry the businessman's daughter. Needless to say, this proposal was met with a look of disgust. The loan shark said that he would place 2 pebbles into a bag, one white and one black. The daughter would then have to reach into the bag and pick out a pebble. If it was black, the debt would be wiped, but the loan shark would then marry her. If it was white, the debt would also be wiped, but the daughter wouldn't have to marry the loan shark. Standing on a pebble-strewn path in the businessman's garden, the loan shark bent over and picked up 2 pebbles. Whilst he was picking them up, the daughter noticed that he'd picked up 2 black pebbles and placed them both into the bag. He then asked the daughter to reach into the bag and pick one. The daughter naturally had 3 choices as to what she could have done. Refuse to pick a pebble from the bag. Take both pebbles out of the bag and expose the loan shark for cheating. Pick a pebble from the bag, fully well knowing it was black, and sacrifice herself for her father's freedom. She drew out a pebble from the bag, and before looking at it, accidentally dropped it into the midst of the other pebbles. She said to the loan shark, "Oh, how clumsy of me. Never mind, if you look into the bag for the one that is left, you will be able to tell which pebble I picked." The pebble left in the bag is obviously black, and seeing as the loan shark didn't want to be exposed, he had to play along as if the pebble the daughter dropped was white and clear her father's debt. Moral of the story: it's always possible to overcome a tough situation, buy of the box, and not give in to the only options you think you have to pick from. 3. Little Johnny sees his daddy's car passing the playground and going into the woods. Curious, he follows the car and sees Daddy and Aunt Jane kissing. Johnny finds this so exciting and can barely contain himself as he runs home and starts to tell his mother excitedly, "Mommy, Mommy, I was at the playground, and Daddy, and..." Mommy tells him to slow down, but that she wants to hear the story. So Johnny tells her, "I was at the playground and I saw Daddy's car go into the woods with Aunt Jane. I went to look, and Daddy was giving Aunt Jane a big kiss." At this point, Mommy cut him off and said, "Johnny, this is such an interesting story. Suppose you save the rest of it for supper time. I want to see the look on Daddy's face when you tell it tonight." At the dinner table, Mommy asks Johnny to tell his story. He describes the car into the woods, the undressing, and then Daddy and Aunt Jane did that same thing Mommy and Uncle Jeff used to do when Daddy was in the army. 4. Little Johnny was sitting in class doing math problems when his teacher picked him to answer a question. "Johnny, if there were 5 birds sitting on a fence and you shot one with your gun, how many would be left?" "None," replied Johnny, "because the rest would fly away." "Well, the answer is 4, said the teacher, "but I like the way you're thinking." Little Johnny says, "I have a question for you. If there were 3 women eating ice cream cones in a shop, one was licking her cone, the second was biting her cone, and the third was sucking her cone. Which one is married." "Well," said the teacher nervously, "I guess the one sucking the cone?" "No," said little Johnny, "the one with the wedding ring on her finger. But I like the way you're thinking." 5. Two men who were waiting at the pearly gates strike up a conversation. "How did you die?" the first man asks the second. "I froze to death," says the second. "That's awful," says the first man. "How does it feel to freeze to death?" "It's very uncomfortable at first," says the second man. "You get the shakes, and you get pains in all your fingers and toes. Eventually, it's a very calm way to go. You get numb, and you kind of drift off, as if you're sleeping. How about you? How did you die?" "I had a heart attack," says the first man. "You see, I knew my wife was cheating on me, so one day I showed up at home unexpectedly. I ran up to the bedroom and found her alone, knitting. I ran down to the basement, but no one was hiding there. I ran up to the second floor, but no one was hiding there either. I ran as fast as I could to the attic, and just as I got there, I had a massive heart attack and died." The second man shakes his head. "That's so ironic," he says. "What do you mean?" asks the first man. "If you had only stopped to look in the deep freezer, we'd both still be alive." A man rents a room and pays extra on the condition the landlady prepare his work lunch every day. So on the first day, she packs him a sandwich on normal sandwich bread, using the last night's leftovers of meatloaf, adding in some fruit and a bottle of soda. When he comes home, he politely tells her that it wasn't quite enough food for him. The next day, she makes 2 sandwiches, turkey this time, and adds a container of salad, some crackers and peanut butter, and a slice of cake. That night, he told her most apologetically that while the food was delicious, he found himself still hungry, and could she possibly put in a little more tomorrow? The next day, she uses long slices of sourdough bread to construct a pair of huge sandwiches, and includes crackers and peanut butter, chips and dip, and veggies and ranch dressing, and a whole 2-liter of soda. That night, he smiles very kindly and tells her it was almost enough food. The next day, throwing caution to the wind and idly wondering if she's feeding his entire workplace, she cuts a loaf of bread in half and stuffs it with pounds of meat and cheese, an entire head of lettuce, tomatoes, onions, other vegetables, sauces, everything. That night, he fixes her with a dry look and says, "So, I see we're back down to 1 sandwich?" 2. Man walks up to the employee and says, "Yeah, I would like, the Polish sausage." The employee kind of chuckles and says, "Polish sausage, you must be Polish." The man gets immediately angry and yells, "Hey, just 'cause I ordered a Polish sausage, don't make me Polish. If I ordered Drench fries, does that make me Drench? If I order Swedish meatballs, does that make me Swedish? If I ordered a Cuban sandwich, does that make me Cuban? Give me one good reason you have the right to think I'm Polish 'cause I ordered a Polish sausage, 'cause I'm not Polish." The employee sighs. "Sir, this is a hardware store." 3. Some time ago, in a little village, there was a yearly tradition. The people of the village, who were usually very polite and God-fearing, would, for one day, participate in a competition of curses. So once a year, everyone gathered in the village square and watched their fellow villagers go one by one on the little dice and try to come up with the most foul and creative curses in as flowing and natural a manner as possible. This year wasn't going so well, unfortunately. While some people were pretty creative, no one really impressed the village with their profanity. They've heard variations of it all before. It was late in the afternoon, and all the promising talents have already gone up. It came time for lesser talents, and Peter was known to have some good curses on occasion, so he was called up. They called his name several times, but he wasn't answering. Eventually, after a few minutes, they heard the door to the outhouse slam, and Peter ran up the stage. And as he arrived, he had already begun a flow of such profanity, such nasty cursing, that everyone took a step back. He was jumping up and down and saying such things that even ruddy, experienced old men blanched at this incredible tirade of pure verbal pollution. Eventually, the flow of curses ebbed. The village people all stared at him, amazed into silence. "All right," said Peter brightly. "Got that darn zipper up. Now for the cursing."